Today's episode is all about how to say goodbye to people pleasing. I grew up in Minnesota, and in Minnesota, I think like a lot of other places that I come have come to find out, but for my state, it's really all about how everybody else should be accommodated first. And you may relate to that. I find this a lot, especially as women, but certainly could be any gender. In particular, I can remember so much of what I grew up with, modeling after my mom, where she did everything for everybody and really didn't even have her own needs get met. And I'm thinking about a story that just came to mind. When I was a little girl, my oldest brother asked me, "What are you going to get mom for Christmas?" And I said, "Well, she said that she really needed a strainer, like a colander." And my brother goes, "But how about something nice just for her, like a scarf?" And it never occurred to me that she would want something like that. I saw her in such the mom role. And I'm only saying that because it made me think about how much my mom was so focused on just taking care of the family, being a homemaker, that I saw her so much in that role. And that's what was modeled for me. That you make sure, like, oh, she needs a colander so she can cook better for us. And yet, we can get, oh my goodness, I'm totally getting derailed now. But thinking about the power of standing up for yourself and not living with that anxiety or that resentment or that frustration when you said yes, but you really meant to say no. And one of the most powerful stories from my history is when I first started after my job in HR, I moved into, or I was transitioning to a role to do career coaching and put that shingle out there. And I'll never forget that at that time, I was doing a lot of my friends' resumes. That was early on in my career, where a lot of us were in that stage of life where we were looking at what do we do next? And not just next, but how do we find ourselves in a career? And I ended up doing a lot of resumes for my friends. Anyhow, all this to say that when I launched my business, I had somebody ask me, "Hey, could you do my resume?" And she was somebody in my friend group. And I felt so anxious about this. I knew in my gut I didn't want to do it for free, but I felt like I had to do it, which is again another way that a lot of us have been culturally conditioned. And thank God I had a therapist and she made a recommendation, which it sounds straightforward. It's so easy. And yet it's the challenge is the way that we emotionally attach to these things. Obviously, a lot of these things are easy in concept, but it's actually the doing that makes it hard. And where we can get stuck is the emotional things that we carry along with these things. So I ended up telling her, I was very proud of myself. I said, based on the coaching that I got from this therapist, I said, I would be happy to do that for you as long as there is a fee to it, because now I'm actually doing this for a living. So here's my hourly rate for writing a resume. Are you interested in that? And she wasn't, but I felt so empowered saying that. And even though it was hard at that time, my gosh, that really broke the ice for me standing up for myself more and not just doing everything that everybody wanted, because that was the way that my mom taught me that you're responsible for everybody else's happiness. And that is so impossible. So, what a way to be set up for failure in life. But remembering that you can actually say no. And that really leads me to oh, and I want to tell you what else happened with that. I actually decided I would give her a second option because she was a friend that would not cost me anything. I said, if that doesn't work for you, I can send you my template for my resume and you can use that for free. And she happily said, yes, that would be great. So there sometimes can be alternatives that are no sweat off of your back. All right, let's talk about. I've got 5 tips for you today. Number one, set small boundaries first so that you have them in lower stakes situations. So, for example, let's say you and your friends are talking about choosing a restaurant, and normally you just say, well, whatever you think is best. And this is actually a very Minnesota thing, which is, well, this would be great, but whatever you think is best. And I don't know if anybody really, if you relate to that, but thinking about this So instead of saying, I don't care, or wherever you want to go, say, my preference is this, or hey, I'd like to go here. I started with my friends saying what I don't like. And you may think I'm nuts, but I generally don't like Mexican food. And so I often will say, I'm not in the mood for Mexican or Chinese tonight, but anything else is great. Or I'm not in the mood for Indian or Thai today, but anything else is great. So sometimes starting with what you don't want can help to define yourself. And this is also what's so important related to taking back our power around people pleasing is to define yourself. I remember back in my dating life, I had I had a therapist actually say, I wonder why it is men are so confused around you. And I'm going, what? Because there are a few things. Once I changed my dating profile from one thing to the next, that was a significant change. And he said, I'm not sure what, like, who you are. And I never thought about it as being confusing to other people. But because when you are too much of a people pleaser, too much of a chameleon, so you're constantly morphing to other people, people don't know what you stand for. And this is something that I had to work on. It took me a long time to get there, and I'm still working on it, frankly, but I'm much more farther along than I was before. So, clear definition as a person helps people be clear around you to know how to be around you. And if we think about this related to leadership, being consistent as a leader is so important because otherwise your credibility can go down, trust can erode if people don't know who they're going to get that day or what version of you based on who's in the room. Like a lot of people change their tune. And I used to not change my tune so much, but I would definitely in the past, when I worked at a company, I would listen for what others I respected, or more importantly, who I knew other people in the company respected, primarily my boss, and sometimes listen for, okay, what did I think she would want to hear that would make me sound smart? And I hate to even, like, it's embarrassing to bring this up, but a lot of us do this. We try to look a certain way. And it makes for a really challenging life because you're constantly navigating based on other people's preferences. If we just lived like ourselves and realized that no matter what, people are either going to accept us or reject us, but we can have no control over that outside of if you're constantly trying to please everybody. Then I heard a recent quote that said, people are never pleased. So you really can't win. It's more important to honor yourself, live in a way that you feel aligns with your values, and let the rest fall where it may. Okay, number two is to pause before automatically agreeing. So let's say somebody says, oh, can you do this thing? Or you'd be perfect for this. And actually, very recently, I was invited to be part of a networking group, and I don't really want to join them, but she was selling it like, you'd be so good for us. And it's very easy to want to just say, yes, 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 that sounds great. But I had a number of years ago, I had a not a great relationship in my life with a guy well before I was married, obviously. And I remember telling my girlfriend, yeah, but his mom just said I'm so good for him. And she goes, Karen, is he good for you? That's the bigger question here. This is your life. And I was so conditioned throughout my childhood to be everything to everybody that it never occurred to me that I had a need that he could fill. Like, wow, I had a right to actually uh, expect that somebody could or could be good for me. So, or that would be an option. Anyway, it was a very, very enlightening, unkind conversation. I'm really revealing a lot of personal vulnerabilities today, so I hope it's connecting with you. Okay, here's what you do. Instead of automatically agreeing, use one of these two phrases. Let me check my schedule, or I need to think about that. When you do those two things, it helps to buy you time. You don't have to give people an answer immediately. So many times we think that we have to give an answer right away, and that is simply not the case. Bide your time, take the time that you need, and then get back to them. The next one, number three, is that disappointment isn't dangerous. And this is some feedback I got from a coach that was really, it was one of those just stopped me in my tracks. So what happened was he was talking about some ways to phrase things with people. And I said, oh, I really need more language around this. I'm really eager to hear more language. And he just flat out said, Karen, you don't need more language. You need more reps on disappointing people. And that just, whoa, just really got me in my gut. It never occurred to me, but it was so true. We have to get comfortable disappointing people. It's going to happen. We're already disappointing people. A lot of times we don't realize that we are, but we've got to look at it as, hey, this is life. If I don't join that networking group, I'm not going to join it just because somebody else wants me to join it. I would join it because it's the right decision for me. And I need to determine, even if it does disappoint somebody, then that's just the way it's going to have to be. And it's really tough. I am almost done reading, but somebody recommended this book a couple years ago called The Courage to Be Disliked. And I would highly recommend it. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's a great book around getting to that point where you can just let the chips fall where they may and disappoint people if that is what's going to happen. By the way, this is a lot of what we talk about in the Powerhouse, my executive women's group that meets twice a month. We walk through scenarios, we do practice so that everybody can get some language around what to say in some of these situations. And if you're interested in learning more about that, please feel free to reach out to me if that would be of service to you. The fourth one is to notice your internal signs. Notice that feeling of anxiety or angst when somebody asks you something and you know in your gut you don't want to do it. Stop yourself before you say yes and notice that. Are you exhausted overall? Are you tired? Are you feeling resentful? Are there some really negative emotions? Or even you might notice it physically. Do your shoulders tense up? Do you get your stomach in knots? If those things are happening, pay attention to those signs. That might be a very, very important thing to listen to connect the dots and go, okay, I might actually need to do something about this. Take your life back. That's so important. We too often, especially as women, we give away our power. And this is one of the ways that we give away our power is we accommodate everybody else at the expense of ourselves. The fifth one is to practice stating your needs directly. Think instead of things like hoping that something's going to happen or hinting that something's going to happen, say things like, here are two phrases you can use. I'd prefer this, or my preference is this. That can feel scary, but I'll tell you, when I started doing this, my other phrase for this is my vote is. So when I was in the corporate world, I remember my boss actually gave me the feedback that I would come to meetings often and say, here's all the research. What do you all think? One day she said, I want to know what you think, Karen. And I just stared like, my jaw was dropping. And then it hit me, okay, wow, she wants to know what I think. And again, going under the surface, a lot of us don't feel worthy or think our voice matters, that people would want to hear it. And so that's a whole other thing to work on. But recognize that you can state your needs directly. So what I started doing that felt diplomatic and yet still direct is to say, here's all the information, here's my vote. What do you all think? Instead of asking, what do you all think? I inserted, here's my vote first. That is one of the phrases that has helped me tremendously, and I get a lot of great feedback on that. So I would suggest that you try it as well. We are plagued by this in society. It is something that many of us have challenges with, and yet it is such a game changer. When you start identifying what your needs are, and sometimes you don't even know. Like this is something I ask a lot of people is, well, what do you need right now? People have a very hard time answering that question. So what I'd suggest you do as a way to think about this is to take some time and space. It could even be 30 seconds. Put your hand on your heart or on your chest and just ask yourself, what do I need right now? And if you sit with that for a moment, you'll get clearer, but you have to be present with yourself. And sometimes it's hard to connect with ourselves if we're not used to doing that. If we're just go, go, go all the time and we're living for everybody else. it's time to start living for you. So think about what that might look like. Take a moment to honor your needs. And then my task for you, or my challenge for you as an action step after this, is to ask somebody to meet one of your needs. So maybe it's, hey, I had a great win this week, whether it was small or big. Ask a friend, hey, will you celebrate with me? In fact, when I was shortly after being married, I remember my husband said, hey, honey, a lot of times you come home and you say, oh, I'm so proud of myself. He says, you kind of say that a lot. And at first I thought, well, what's wrong with that? But his point was, it felt like it was, and I'll just get a little into a little more psychology here, that what I've come to realize is that when people say things like that, I'm so proud of myself. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was in more of a child posture. What I really wanted to say is, will you be proud of me too? Listen to me, look at me, recognize me. So we have to take ownership for our needs. How I've shifted that instead is, hey, honey, I had a win today and I would love to celebrate with you. Will you celebrate with me? I'd love to share that with you. That's a completely different experience than I'm so proud of myself, with an undercurrent of, will you please recognize me? Now, you can still say I'm proud of I'm not saying don't say it, but I'm saying check your intentions. Are you being passive, what's called a rescue wish? Are you wanting someone to rescue you so that, because and if you aren't familiar with that term, it comes from, again, psychology, that as infants, we cry and the adults around us, hopefully pick us up to comfort us. So that rescue wish is very valid as a baby. But what happens is, a lot of times as adults, we want other people to rescue us, and we don't clarify what we actually need. We're just hoping that they read our minds. And this happens a lot with some of my clients, and that's why they come to me, is I was hoping that someone would notice me and promote me, but they didn't. They promoted somebody else instead. And it's remarkable how often this happens. So we have to take ownership and figure out, what do I need? And so in that example, hey, I want to be promoted within 6 months or a year or 3 months or whatever it is. And I'd love to create a plan to get there. Will you help me do that? And if that isn't in the plan for you as my manager, I'd like to know what's in the way and how I can work on that so that I can be promoted. So it's, again, it's such a different conversation when you're actually owning your needs. Try that, see how it goes, and let me know. I would love to hear how things are going for you. As a reminder, if you know anybody that is looking for a speaker, particularly in the hospitality industry, I speak at hospitality conferences for women, and I also coach executive teams on culture and communication so that everybody can work better together. Let me know if you have a referral for me, as that would be greatly appreciated so that we can get everybody the help that they need. Have a wonderful rest of your day. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.